One thing I noticed with my plyometrics is my right side is not as coordinated as my left. Like when I jump, it doesn't feel as athletic. It feels a little bit more sloppy. All right, jumps are done. Gonna do some hand extensors, leg raises, and neck. With these hand extensors, I'm sort of just going at not an AMRAP. I mean, I do have a rep in mind, but it's kind of going based off a feel. So if I could do 25 or 30 reps, then I'm not going to stay at this resistance, right? Because there's different color-coded resistance. Like white is the easiest, green is the second, and then there's blue, yellow, red. So one should always be progressively overloading if you can, but I think this is one of the more underrated hand exercises out there, right? You're always closing your hand and gripping, but how often do you work the opposite side of it, which is opening your hands? Which is very rarely. Like most of us don't do that enough, I think. But it's one of those exercises where you don't think about it till something happens, if that makes sense. Like I only came across this exercise from John Brookfield's book, The Mastery of Hand Strength, which I don't have the physical copy. I'm pretty sure you could find a PDF version somewhere online. All right. One thing that's been bugging my mind is which is a better squat variation for overall athletic performance? Is the front squat superior or is the back squat superior? And I've been thinking back and forth about this, and I guess there's pros and cons to both. With a back squat, the benefit of it is you have the ability to put a higher load relative to the front squat. That's kind of obvious. Whereas, and you also have more room for less than optimal mobility. So if your wrist or your thoracic spine is not very mobile, as required in the front squat, you don't need it as much for the back squat. But you can even make the argument that, hey, the front squat, because it requires such mobility, that's one of the benefits required in an athlete, right? Because you want an athlete to be able to have the wrist mobility, shoulder, thoracic, upper back, and all that stuff. But the trade-off is you don't have the ability to lift as much weight. And so, I don't know. I just kind of feel like you can go either way. I mean, the back squat just feels good, right? Because I could just squat the heavier weight. But with the front squat, it feels different, but not in a bad way either. And I can do both variations fine without much problem. But I just can't help but overthink about this. So. I just did a set of front and back squat. And one benefit that I didn't mention about the front squat is it forces you to stay in an upright position. And so, with the back squat, if it gets heavy enough, you're naturally going to start hinging forward because your other muscles is going to want to help you move the weight. Because why do you lean forward is part of the reason is your legs aren't strong enough to push up the weight. And that's one thing I always have to be cognizant of in a heavy high bar squat is I always have to make sure my chest is upright, that I'm not trying to do like a good morning squat. But with a front squat, yes, you still have to fight to keep your chest upright, but it's more readily apparent, right? Because in a front squat, if you lean too forward, you're just gonna dump the bar in front of you, like there's no other way. And so it's more obvious where that tilting point is. Whereas in a high bar back squat, where is that tilting point? Like let's say you're squatting 205 for 5, and then you went up to 225. But let's say you're starting to hinge a bit more. I mean, you can argue that your technique is no longer consistent, right? But with a front squat, you don't have that problem. It's more standardized. So, I guess maybe I just sort of talked myself into sticking with the front squat right now. So. Alright, so another switch I made was going from overhead press to 30 degrees incline press. And dude, my upper back is just killing me. So I had two choices. I can either sit there and work through the pain, or I can switch to another exercise that, depending on who you ask, is arguably just as good, right? So I'm just gonna stick with incline bench. I really want to heal my upper back, and it's not like the way I see it is if my bench press gets stronger, it's gonna carry over to my overhead press. So I don't want to overthink this too much, but quads are toast. I felt it even during the incline bench when I was pushing my leg into the ground. Felt my quads then. I definitely feel my quads right now. So, I guess that sort of answers that squat question, right? Front squat works your quads way more. Because I never really felt like this in the high bar back squat. Ooh. Alright, a couple more minutes of rest. Put this away. Then on to the last accessory. Alright, let's do one more set.